In part one of our series on starting home winemaking, we looked at all the equipment and all the materials you might need to make a flavoured wine must, and then how to start that must fermenting. Today we're going to complete the process. We're going to look at the end of fermentation, clearing the wine, bottling the wine and producing an incredible, delicious, reasonably priced, ecologically friendly wine. Hello, my name's Hugh. Welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the garden on a sketchy day. It's been a bit rainy, bit windy, bit sunny, typical English springtime. Welcome to part two of getting started with home winemaking. In our first episode, we looked at primary fermentation vessels, big plastic buckets that we make a wine must in. We looked at secondary fermentation vessels, demijohns and things like that, in which we can actually ferment that wine out. Today, we're going to look at the process from when that fermentation started to completing, i.e. how do I know the wine is done? How do I clear that wine? How do I get it into the bottles? How do I cork it? How do I lay it down for drinking? It's a wonderful process. It honestly shouldn't be confusing. So let's get started. So fermentation's complete. How do you know? Really very straightforward. You're fermenting in a demijohn. It's got an airlock. If there's no bubbles going through the airlock, you can be fairly sure that fermentation is complete. Very occasionally, you'll get a stuck fermentation, which is one where the yeast stops working and it hasn't finished fermenting. And if you bottle with a stuck fermentation, you run the risk of blowing the corks out of your wine bottles. The only way to be really sure of that is to use one of those hydrometers, and with the hydrometer reading you can tell that the sugar's been used up and fermentation is complete. But honestly, there's no gas going through. Most of the time you're pretty sure that fermentation is complete. So what you're going to end up with then is wine with a layer of sediment at the bottom, and you've got to get the wine off that sediment, and the wine will still have some particles sort of suspended in the wine, but first things first, get it away from the sediment, which is all the dead yeast and other material from the fermentation process. And how you do that is you siphon it into another vessel. Ideal if you've got second demijohn. Not everyone has. If you haven't, siphon it into any clean container, wash out your demijohn and put it back in. How do you do it? Well, any bit of rubber tubing will act as a siphon, but you can get these wine siphons, and honestly, they're only like a tiny amount of money. They're worth having. They have a solid part of the tube, which makes it easier to poke the tube down into the demijohn. There's a cup on the bottom that stops you sucking up the sediment, and there's a tap on the end. So what you do, pop it in so that it's not quite touching the sediment, suck on the end and close the tap, put the tap into the empty vessel, open the tap, and gravity will pull the liquid across. Now, if you're just doing it with a bit of rubber tube, that's fine. Just put your thumb over the end instead of the tap. You can do it. It's fine. What you'll then end up with is your wine without sediment in a new vessel. Make sure that you still use an airlock. Then you just leave it until all the particles settle out and rack it off again, and you may have to do that several times. It's fine. That'll work really effectively, and the wine is perfectly safe. It doesn't matter how long you leave it in the demijohns with an airlock in. If you want to hasten the process along, after the initial racking, you can use something like this. This is wine finings. It's just 2 little bottles of liquid. What you do, half a teaspoon per gallon of liquid A, give it a swirl, then put in half a teaspoon of liquid B after 30 minutes, give it another swirl, and those 2 liquids together cause all the suspended particles to clump together and settle out. It won't clear it any better than repeated racking, but what it will do is do it a lot more quickly. And if you want a final, really professional finish, which is completely unnecessary, just makes your wine look great, you can use a wine filter. And all that is a form of siphon again, but in the middle is this plastic housing. It's got a big thick pad of paper in it, and you pass your wine through that, and that gets any last little bits of suspended particles out of the wine and leaves it beautifully polished and shiny and clear. That's all there is to clearing wine. Like I say, as a minimum, bit of rubber tubing and patience and you can get your wine beautifully clear. Let's move on to bottling. So your wine's all clear and you need to get it into the bottles. So how do you get it into the bottles? I suppose that's the first question. The right answer, if you read all the books, is to siphon it carefully into the bottle. So use the same siphon you did when you were racking off. Take it out of your demijohn, tilt the bottle so the wine is running down the edge of the bottle and you're not frothing it up and getting lots of oxygen in. A lot of people will tell you getting a lot of air into the wine when you're bottling it is not a good thing. Now I'm going to be honest, a lot of the time I will put a funnel in the neck of the bottle and I will pour the wine in, and it drives a few people into horrors. All I can tell you is I've been winemaking for more than 40 years and it's not caused me a problem yet. But the wisdom is the safest way, siphon it in with the bottle on an angle so you don't get a lot of air mixed into the wine. You've then got a choice, of course, haven't you? What kind of bottles do you want to use? Do you want to use the screw top type or the cork type? They both work, and in either way, get a new seal for it. So if you're using a corked bottle, buy some corks, we'll come on to that. If you're using the screw top type, you can get replacement reusable screw tops for screw top wine bottles, and I strongly recommend that you do that because the sort of metal ones do get bent a little bit if you use them repeatedly, may not give you a very good seal. I'm a traditionalist, I like corks. So buy some corks and buy the pre-waxed versions. The ones that aren't pre-waxed you have to soak before you use, and it's a bit of a hassle. If you get the wax ones, you can use them straight away. We put them in with this. This is called a caulking gun. It's pretty straightforward. There's a metal ram here, two handles that lever that ram down. You put a cork into the chamber. The chamber is tapered. So what it does is compresses the cork a little bit, allows it into the neck of the bottle and then rams it all the way home. All you have to do, literally sit it on like that, pull the levers out and the ram drives the cork into the neck of the bottle. I promised I'd give you cheap options. You can get slightly tapered wine corks. So if you don't want to buy a caulking gun, get the tapered variety of wine corks, sit them in the top of the bottle, get a little bit of wooden doweling and a mallet, and just tap that cork home into the neck of the bottle. Works absolutely fine. That's what I did to start with. Absolutely nothing wrong with doing it that way. I even know a very brave bloke gets tapered wine corks, shoves them in the neck, turns the bottle on its side and pushes them in by leaning against his kitchen wall. I am not that brave. I would use the mallet and the dowel technique, but it works fine. One last little thing. If you want to give your wine a really professional finish, label it nicely. And I do recommend labeling all wine because you're going to want to lay it down for a good few months before drinking. And if you do that, you're probably going to make several batches. It's nice to know what's in each bottle. You can get these as well. These are called shrink caps. They go on the neck of the bottle and you plunge them into a pan of boiling water and they shrink onto the neck. Partly they aid the seal of the wine, but mostly it's about the look of the thing. And I don't think we should be ashamed of our homemade wines. Done well, they are delicious and really, really every bit as good as wine that you will buy in the shops. In fact, in many cases, they're even better. So don't be frightened to dress your wine up, make it look nice. And there you have it. That's wine from starting from the fruit to getting it in the bottle. That's all the equipment, all the sort of materials, consumables that you'll need to do it. That's all the equipment that you're going to need and all of those kind of consumables that we've talked about, like yeast and yeast nutrient, to make your own wine at home. And you can make some stupendous wines. Just a few that I've pulled out to illustrate the point. This one is a 2012 Elderberry Port. It's a monster red wine, packed with fruit, packed with tannins. Really, honestly, if you're going to have like a steak dinner or something and you want something really robust to go with it, you won't go far wrong with that. But if your tastes run a bit lighter, there are some things you can do with homemade wines that you just can't get in the shops. This is a 2014 raspberry wine, made just with our own raspberries, grown in the fruit cage over there. If you've ever had a big bowl of raspberries and you've got that bit of juice in the bottom and you taste it and it's got that lightness and that fruitiness, it's wonderful. That's just what the wine is like. It's light, it's crisp, it's fruity, like the best rosé you've ever had, and honestly better than probably any great rosé I've ever had. It's a magnificent summer wine. If your tastes run a bit more floral, you'll never go wrong with an elderflower. I'll put a link to our recipe up above. And it's a classic English summer wine, that elderflower taste. You really can't go wrong, and now's the time to make one. And hopefully with this video you've got the equipment and the link I've put up there to go and try making your own elderflower wine. And you can go further. This, 8 years old, is a vanilla Methaglin. And a Methaglin is a flavoured mead. And I want you to think of the rich, round butteriness of honey compared with that kind of ice cream flavours of vanilla, all combined into a fairly alcoholic drink, hence the small bottle size. To buy anything of that quality would cost you a fortune. But to make it, it's no problem at all. And that's the joy of home winemaking. If you've enjoyed today's video, can you spare us 5 seconds and give us a thumbs up down below? If you'd like to see more on this kind of topics, please leave us a comment. We're thinking about doing a recipe on blackberry wine, but we're also thinking of just showing a wine kit being made or a beer kit being made. Is that something you'd enjoy? Please let us know. And if you'd like to see those videos, just while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it if you're not already subscribed. You'll hear every time we upload a new video. Now, a few people have asked us how to support the channel, and one way you can do it, if you want to, we do sell these ethical, sustainable t-shirts. There's a link in the description, and we'd like to thank everyone who's already bought one. It's made a massive difference to the channel. It really helps us do what we do. Anyway, whatever you do, please enjoy your summer. Come back and see us soon. Take care.